So this podcast episode is with Kimberly from 312 Pizza Company in Nashville. We talk about festivals, how you can get customers from that, working with family, and a whole lot of other stuff about bringing Chicago-style pizza to the Nashville area. So if you are interested in any of those topics, or you have a pizzeria in general, you're going to definitely want to check out this episode that we're going to get into right now. Kimberly, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me.
This is great. I'm excited to talk to you because we will be at the Nashville Pizza Fest, which is happening in a couple weeks, and you guys are going to be there as well, so we're excited to see you there and stop into your pizzeria, but also hear your story about how you got into pizza. So give us a little background about yourself and your pizzeria.
Yeah, so we've been open here for 10 years. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, but originally, me and my family were from Chicago. So when we moved to Nashville, obviously the first thing we did was look for pizza, and we could not find any Chicago pizza anywhere. It just did not exist. So my family and I, we had always talked about owning a restaurant together or a bar of some sort. And we thought, well, maybe this is a sign, a good time to do it, because clearly there's a need for it, but no one's done it here yet. So 10 years ago, my mom and my dad was coming up on retirement. They decided to put up literally all of their retirement into this and give it a go. And that's exactly what they did. So that's kind of how we got started. My dad was a plumber up in Chicago, and here we are getting involved in the pizza business. But these recipes have been in my family for generations. So my grandma used to live in Little Italy, Chicago, and the Italian ladies there would say, well, what are you cooking for dinner? And she would say, oh, I don't know, Chef Boyardee. And they'd say, oh my gosh, no. So they actually taught my grandma how to make really good Italian sauce and marinara. And then there was a little pizza shop in Chicago that taught my grandma how to make our thin crust pizza dough. So these recipes have been in our family since then, and my mom has made it for me. And so we had really good recipes, and we decided that we just needed to do that. So we make everything from scratch here. It's truly like having your mom or grandma cook for you. Everything is made from scratch in our kitchen.
That's great. So let me ask you this. I was just recently in Chicago. We did a whole bunch of videos with some of the people I know that own pizza shops in Chicago. And I feel like there's two different things. People who live in Chicago, what they think Chicago-style pizza is, and then everybody else who doesn't live in Chicago thinks Chicago-style pizza is something else.
So true. Yes. So all of the tourists, or I will say even the people in Nashville, because we're not in Chicago, deep dish is their Chicago-style pizza. But if you live in Chicago, you hardly ever have it. You have it for special occasions, every once in a while, but multiple times a week you are eating thin crust pizza, tavern cut, because it's like, what are we having for Friday night? Definitely thin crust pizza. It's just multiple times.
So when you open,
yeah,
that's awesome. So when you opened, were you guys thinking Chicago-style pizza like thin crust, and everybody else was thinking it was going to be deep dish?
We knew that we had to do both no matter what. Because of this, we knew that anyone from Chicago would be looking for the thin crust, and anyone not from Chicago would be looking for the deep dish. So right off the bat, we were like, it has to be both. We can't do one or the other.
I'm sure a lot of people in Nashville didn't even know about the thin crust.
Correct. Yes, people get so shocked that we even have it, and we're like, well, and we'll go into it. We're like, well, technically, this is like a Chicago thin crust pizza. And another thing that was kind of a learning curve for us is people in Nashville just weren't used to how long Chicago-style deep dish takes to cook. So it is a part of our spiel when we greet the table, like, hey, it takes at least 45 minutes, and if we get busy, it can take up to an hour. So that was something that people kind of had to get used to, because they're like, I don't get it. It's just pizza. Why is it taking
it should take 5
so
minutes, 6 minutes, right?
Yeah. We're like, well, there's over a pound of cheese on this thing. It's literally like cooking a pie or lasagna. I mean, it's thick, and it has to bake in the oven for a long time for it to be done. So there was a little bit of a learning curve when we did this, but thankfully 10 years later, we're still here and people love it.
I mean, 10 years in business is not easy to do, especially when in the middle of that was COVID, right?
Yes, was COVID, and that was like a trying time for everybody, and you're just wondering, are we still going to be here? And then even after COVID, all of the changes that have happened just with, how expensive groceries have gotten and food costs, everything just changed. So you're just kind of navigating that all the time and trying to figure out what else can we do to stay in the game.
Right. Mm-hmm. So do you guys do delivery, or is it more of a dine-in experience?
It's more dine-in. We tried delivery ourselves several years ago. It didn't work for us. One of the issues was just making sure that we had a delivery driver, but it's just hit or miss on who's going to want delivery. So we have to go with like the delivery apps for anyone that wants that, and then everything else is carry out or dine in.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, Chicago does. So the deep dish probably carries pretty well for delivery. Does the thin crust carry well too?
It does. Yeah. I mean, the thin crust is like a cracker crust. So if you have this in Chicago, like you're looking for that break that would sound like a cracker. And so it's pretty thin, but it does carry well for takeout, and it's delicious.
Yeah, I can't wait. So I'll be in Nashville. I won't be there for Saturday when you guys are at the festival, but I will be in Nashville for a few days. I'm gonna stop in and get some of that pizza because I was just in Chicago, like I said, and I try, like, I'm a pizza guy. Like, I've had pizza all over the country, many different places. And I like the deep dish pizza, but I do love the cracker thin cut square pizza, my favorite.
Me too. The deep dish is delicious. It's just so filling. So you can truly only have one piece, maybe two pieces, but it's just not something that you can eat all the time. And thin crust, when it's tavern cut like that, I mean, it's shareable. You can have as little or as much as you want, and you don't feel like you need to take a nap afterwards.
That's very true. Yeah, that deep dish is really. Yeah. I mean, it's great. If it's a good deep dish, it's really, really good. But you can't eat it more than once every couple weeks or a month.
Right. Did you get thin crust or deep dish when you went to Chicago?
So both. So like I'm not from Chicago. I'm from Boston. So I was visiting friends in Chicago, and they said, like the normal places like Lou Malnati's, the original Uno's. But then I know a lot of pizza folks in Chicago, so they're like, all right, you went there, great, get that tourist stuff out of the way. Now go to these places.
Go to those neighborhood pizza joints where, for sure.
Like I think I went to Lefty's Pizza Kitchen, which was like they have one or two spots. And I got, like, they have a mixture of a deep dish, but it's not like super deep like Lou Malnati's, and then they have the cracker thin one.
Yes. I mean, when I go home to Chicago, I still go and just try to hit up new pizza places to try new pizza, because it's just, I mean, you're never going to get them all, but it's just something that you have to do when you go to Chicago, is just go to new places, try new pizza.
Yeah, exactly. What's the pizza scene like in Nashville?
There is so many more pizza places than there used to be. So there's a lot of New York style, though. A lot of New York style has come to Nashville, some Detroit, and very little Chicago. But aside from us, like as I said, when we opened 10 years ago, there was no Chicago style. And now I think there's two more places that carry a Chicago style pizza aside from us. But other than that, you can get New York style all over Nashville.
Any favorite places of yours other than your own, obviously?
I mean, that's a tough question because we eat this all the time.
Right.
But there are a few, but they would be New York style. So when we don't eat this pizza, like every once in a while, we've ordered Pinky's, which they're out of Madison.
Okay, yeah.
And they're pretty good. And they're fairly new too. But yeah, sometimes you've got to switch it up, right? When you have your pizza all the time, it's like, where else can we go? And I think
that's 100% true.
We'll be there too, I think.
I think that I saw them on there.
At the festival, yeah.
When I was, so you guys have been doing it for 10 years. I've been in the pizza business for like 25 years. When I first started, I was young, and everything was kind of a secret. This was like pre-internet too. Everything was kind of a secret. Nobody really shared anything or wanted to share like numbers or how you operated. I feel like the pizza industry is so much more open now that I enjoy going into other pizza places. Even if I own one today and it was like the same area, I would want to go visit, like talk to the shop owner. Hey, how are you making your dough? Or how's business for you? And everybody's more open now. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's not like you have to protect this little thing. Like, there's all different kinds of pizza, and people can like more than one, and people can support more than one business. And as a business owner, I just think it's great to get to know other businesses and, even collaborate with other businesses. It's only going to help our community and our businesses ourselves.
Yeah. So you're going to be at the Nashville Pizza Festival. I feel like this is a plug for Nashville Pizza Festival. I said it like 10 times in the podcast.
Yeah.
What have you ever done it before?
No, this will be our first year. So this is the first year that they're bringing it to Nashville, but I know that they've done it in LA and maybe Chicago.
Yep.
And it's been pretty successful. So this will be the first year in Nashville. So we're excited. I mean, we've done other tasting events where you've had to like, give out samples and stuff, but this will be a first for us with like cooking on site and making pizza there. But we are going to do a deep dish, and it's going to be a 5-cheese deep dish pizza. It's actually one of the pizzas that we make in-house here. It's called the Mrs. O'Leary, which we called it that because the Mrs. O'Leary, it's a Chicago, supposedly her cow started the Chicago fire. So we call it the Mrs. O'Leary because of all the cheese that's on it, all of the dairy. But it is mozzarella, cheddar, provolone, Gruyere, and Parmesan cheeses. And it is very delicious.
That sounds great. What are your thoughts on like festivals? Like, is it easy for you guys to do, or is there a lot to manage before you go in there? How does that work?
Yeah, so we don't have a food truck, but we have done festivals. We actually just got done doing Oktoberfest, which is in our neighborhood, and we just finished it this weekend. So it was Thursday to Sunday. Luckily, our restaurant is 3 blocks away from the festival, so we literally cook in our restaurant and golf cart it down to our booth, and we usually do pizza by the slice, deep dish. So that is easy enough for us to do. We've always wanted to tackle like renting an oven and cooking on site, but we haven't been brave enough yet to go through all of those steps. So far the festivals that we've done, we have always cooked and then ran them down and just gone back and forth the entire day, which is a lot of work. But
yeah, it sounds like a lot.
If you can find the right festival where you know it's going to be busy and it's going to pay off, then it's definitely worth it. But we would also love to eventually get a food truck one day to actually just have that for festivals.
Yeah. So you look at the festival as like a way to get in front of new customers. Is that how you guys look at it?
Yes, absolutely. Because especially in Nashville here, there's so many people that are moving to this city daily that haven't heard of you. So getting your face in front of more people is, I just think, the best thing that you can do, or that can try your food. So we're wanting to even do more festivals than we're already doing now, just because it's just more revenue for the restaurant, but more people that can come know that you're here that might have not have found you before.
Yeah, I always thought of it, and you have a good advantage because you're so close. You could just make it in your shop.
Yeah, that was extremely
I always
helpful.
I always looked at, if I was a guest at a festival, I always look at pizza places who, like, wow, that must be stressful because you're making pizza not in your environment. It's usually not the oven you use in your restaurant.
Yes.
It's chaotic. It's like there's so much going on. Even though we're pizza folks and like we're used to busy kitchens, it's just a different environment when you see a line of people staring at you and you're like trying to hustle to get the pizza ready.
Yes, for sure. And what's great about this festival is they provide the oven, so that's just one less thing. It makes it a little easier for the vendors that are showing up there to have to cook on site. A lot of things that they're providing just make it easy for us to be able to crank out food.
Does your whole staff go in there, like your whole family? Does your whole family work in the business with you?
Yeah, so it is, the owners are me, my mom, and my husband. So between the 3 of us, there's generally always somebody here at the restaurant. But we also have a 2-year-old daughter, and she's here a lot too. She
That's great.
already wants to answer phones and everything. So between the
awesome.
4 of us, somebody will usually watch the little one, and then the other ones will go and either be at the festival or, whatever event that we're doing. So I think for this fest, it'll be my husband and I that'll be cooking, and maybe one other staff member with us just to kind of get some help. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend with a lot of really cool restaurants.
That's great. It must be tough working in the business with it must be tough and awesome working in the business with your family.
Yes. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons. I mean, what they say, don't go into business with your family. When we started, I can tell you we were one of the people that were just like, absolutely not. Like, that's not going to happen to us. But, throughout all of that, with who we have left running this business, my mom, my husband, and I, the 3 of us, thankfully, work together pretty well. I mean, we kind of do a system where if somebody's outvoted, then just go with the majority instead of somebody always having to be right or to like make a decision, because at least everyone's being heard and everyone gets to have their say, and that seems to work for us. But when it started, my dad was a part of it, but he unfortunately passed away of cancer in 2016.
Oh no, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And I do have two other sisters that were a part of it at some point in time, but just wasn't their thing. And so this is what we've got left is the three of us. And so it works great. So
yeah,
I will say
the pizza.
Close, if you're close with like your family, it could be something that gets in between. So you just have to work really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I think open communication and always meeting to talk about the things that are going on and everyone being included in decisions is a huge part of being successful working with family.
That's great advice. And I 100% agree because, like you said, when you opened it, you're like, oh, this is going to be great. Nothing bad has happened yet. You had no real hard decisions to make, so everything seems like sunshines and rainbows, and it's like, it's never going to be bad. There's going to be a point in time where something bad is going to happen or you are not going to agree, and having a plan in place for when that happens, not if, but when that happens is really important.
It's very true, because it's inevitable, and even if you think that it won't, it will. But just keeping respect for each other and listening and communicating, like those are the biggest things. And if you can do that, then I think it's very possible to work with family or friends. And also just having a clear understanding of like what everyone's roles are. What is your role going to be and what is your portion of this business? And just being clear about that so everyone knows what they have to do to make this collective happen.
Yeah, that's also good advice. I think I had a partner in the business, and one of the things that kind of we butted heads on, we were kind of the same person. We had the same skill set, the same personality, and it ended up not working out in the end, but in a good way. We figured it out. But in the beginning, it was like we both wanted to do the same thing. So like you said, finding people who maybe have opposite skills that you do, or you define exactly what you're going to do before it happens, is a great way to kind of solve that problem of butting heads, which will happen.
Yes, and if everyone goes into it knowing what their role is going to be or what their portion is going to be, then you're not all trying to do the same thing or just constantly getting in everyone's way. And if you can figure out, well, this is what you're great at, this is how you can complement, then it makes it so much easier.
I agree. How many employees do you guys have there?
About 30.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, between our front and back of house, we have a great back of house staff. Our kitchen manager actually started as our dishwasher almost when we opened, and has moved all the way up to be our kitchen manager. I mean, he's amazing. So he's done everything you can possibly think of in our kitchen. But we have a lot of staff that will stick around for a long time because we're a family business. I just think that you get to know people differently, and like, for example, the festival that we just did, saw a ton of old staff that just came up and were so excited to see us as we were them, because you get to know these people and they do become like your family after a while.
Yeah, you're with them all the time, right? You're with them more than you are sometimes your family, especially when you're starting out.
Yes, and when they move on to other things, it's just exciting to see what else they're doing in their lives, and when they come back, it's like, wow, like it's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, it's always good to see people move on from your business in a good, positive way, too.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think, especially with restaurants, like, we don't expect everyone to just stay here, right? This is usually just a stepping stone for somebody to get by until they do the thing that they really want to do. And I think for us, we want to push our staff to do those things, and when it's their time to go, I mean, we've thrown parties for lots of staff members and bought gifts for them that relate to whatever profession they're going into, and just as like a, hey, thanks for being here and best of luck to you on your next thing.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Plus, other people who maybe are new or wanting to work for you, they'll recognize that too, and it'll be easier for you to find people to work for you in the future.
Oh yeah, yes. It's been, I will say, like, for the most part, every once in a while you have a hard time finding staff, but for the people that we have here, it's just been really great to have this like tight-knit group of people that work here with us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at, while you're talking, I was looking over your Instagram, and your pictures of your pizza look fantastic. Do you take those yourself, or who does your Instagram?
I do, which is a thing that I don't want to say complain about, but it's definitely, you got to wear a lot of hats when you own a business, and learning social media and all of that is one of them. But yeah, I do my best to keep up with it, and I think it's important to find people in your city to collaborate with, which we actually just did one yesterday. Because like I said, the more people that see you, or like the more people that are talking about you online, the better. So we're always looking for ways to collaborate with people on social media. I think that's an important thing to do.
Smart, because especially if you have good reviews and good service, if those three things are taken care of and you're confident in your product, you just need exposure, right? Like the more exposure you get, the better.
Yes. And the more people that like it gets out in front of, like I said, that don't know that you're here, it's just another avenue for people to say, hey. And also, it's usually a really good picture of like a good cheese pull that makes people go, oh, I want to eat that.
Yeah, the deep dish Chicago style pizza does really well on Instagram for some reason compared to everything else.
Yes, it is visually appetizing. Like usually you can suck people in with that.
Yeah. It's funny too, you said that you wear a lot of hats as a business owner. There's so many things that you have to do when you open a pizzeria that you don't know you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure when you was Instagram, Instagram was a thing when you guys opened, wasn't it? It probably wasn't as big a thing as it is now.
It is, it wasn't as big of a thing as it is, but it was there, and we had one, but it is not like it is now, where it's almost like you do have to do it. And it's just, there's so much stuff, and being a smaller family-owned business, like it would be great to have a company that you could hire to just run that social media, and then you can do something else. But you kind of have to pick and choose like what avenues you want your help with, just because you only have so much money to work with. Having just a small family business, so that's the one that I was like, well, I think I can tackle that and still do everything else too. But you're a marketing genius. You have to be make sure that your numbers are in line, and you have to figure out other ways to advertise or do promotions, and it's just you're doing a billion different things when you thought you were just going to be running a pizza shop.
You're like, I'm just going to make great pizza. Like that will be it. Everybody will love it. That's true.
But not, that'd be great.
You got to get the word out there and find people who actually can come into your restaurant to love it.
Yeah, I think the amount of things that you actually have to do, a lot of people just don't realize or think about until you're in it and you're doing it.
That's why I love doing this podcast, because I get to hear stories like yours and other people's who are doing it to kind of inspire other folks, right? Like there's a lot of people out there who email me and message me and like, oh, I'm an accountant and I want to open my own pizza shop. I'm like, do you really want to though? Like you think you do, but like, do you really want to? You like pizza, but do you really want to own a pizzeria?
Right.
Like, have you ever worked in one? But I like telling stories like this because it's like, it can be done. You've been doing it for 10 years. You seem like you love it still. But there is a lot of things that go into it that you don't know if you've never worked in one or owned one.
Exactly. Yes. And things that you would just never even think of. And so, it's different that I think once you actually have it and then you look back and you kind of realize all of the other things that you have to learn just to accomplish this.
Yeah. What would you, if you could go back to your 10 years ago and tell yourself, hey, do this one thing, I think business will be a lot easier. Is there anything that you would go back in time and tell yourself to do differently that you didn't do in the beginning?
Yeah, I think the advice because like I said, when we opened, and it was my parents that put up their retirement, it was offered, they had 3 kids, I'm one of them. It was offered to all 3 kids if they wanted to be an owner at no cost. My parents were that generous. Like they were going to make us all equal owners. So 2 of us said yes, 1 said no. And I just think that when you are setting up with family, being very clear in the beginning, like who does what your roles are going to be, but also communicating a lot of big decisions together, as opposed to one person making decisions on other people's behalfs. Because 2 of those people that started with us are no longer a part of it because it just didn't work out. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that it would have ended the way it did there, I would have told you were crazy. Like I just wouldn't have believed you because our family was that strong. So if I could do a piece of advice, it would definitely be that, and just to make sure that everything is laid out pretty clear, and weekly meetings to talk about everything and letting everyone have at least voice their opinion or their say on certain things, I think is really important. But
Yeah, communication's so important for everything, right? Business,
yeah,
relationships, your kids, like whatever it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Oh, you can never over communicate things. You can always under
Correct.
communicate, and then it gets weird. But you can never
Yeah.
over communicate.
yeah, yeah. And I just think that when you have more than one person that's owning a business, letting everybody voice their opinion on where they think what decision should be made, I think is important, because then you feel like you're heard, or you're at least making a say on your own business,
Yeah.
and so, as opposed to having just one person be in charge. Doesn't always work. They might not be making the best decisions for your business.
Right. Especially if you are part owner and you have to rely on somebody else's
Yes.
decision making and that you don't agree with, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It can be tough. Yeah.
What's the hardest part about operating the business in 2024 as we move into 2025? Anything that's really challenging right now?
I think for us, there's so many things to do outside of being in your business, like outside of managing your business. There's so many things to do. And so I just think that, with how high groceries are and how high labor has gotten, for us, we still kind of have to implement ourselves into those managing roles. And that can be a little challenging because there's so many other things that you have to do. So if we're here managing, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I've got to do this, 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 and this. But it's a way for us to save on labor when we're actually here covering a shift. So things like that. It's just you end up doing things that you have to do as opposed to things that you really need to get done. And that can be really challenging because you've got to find other time to get those things done. And it can just be exhausting at the end of the day.
Yeah. Are you open 7 days a week?
We were before the pandemic, and we actually closed on Tuesday. Tuesday was actually our slowest day, and not Monday. And we haven't reopened just because, we haven't gotten to that place where we just feel like things are back to the way they were before COVID. Things are just still weird. Like some days we're just still busier on carry out than we are dine in, or vice versa. And so our goal is to get back open 7 days a week like we used to. But there's only so much that we can do within our day to kind of head to that direction. So we will see.
Yeah, that's tough. I know, it's tough. Somebody asked me before I started the podcast when I was operating the pizzeria, they're like, how many days off did you get? I'm like, we get no days off. Because when you own a business, even if you have the day off, like I didn't go physically into the business, you're still not off. Like people text you, they call you, stuff happens that you have to worry about. I remember the only days we really got off was like Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe 4th of July, depending on what day it fell on, we would close.
The
Easter,
days that
maybe.
you're just actually closed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. With no business is happening, we would be like, listen, we don't want the business to burn to the ground, but if it does and it's on one of those days, nobody's there, we have insurance, but we'll deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times we've had the day off and someone didn't show and you just end up having to go to work. And even just covering shifts just to make sure everything runs smoothly. And that's just a part of it. But yeah, like you can think that you're going to have the day off, but don't always plan on it.
That's right. Yeah, because it's like you never know. When you're an owner of a business and everything lies on your shoulders to be fixed or completed or a question has to get answered, you are on the clock.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and now in today's age where everything is just right in your hand on this little device, everyone's expecting an answer now. So you thought you were going to go for a walk, but you're on your phone, and it's just, I kind of miss the days before having like email and texting and all of that, when it's just if you left the house, they couldn't get a hold of you until you got back.
Exactly. Like, technology is fantastic because we can do things like this now, or this was like Jetson stuff back in the day. But it's also, as an owner, it also like, dang, I wish I could just not carry my phone for 10 minutes so I could get a break.
Yeah. And I just think that our society has almost become ingrained that like they need a response now. Like I just sent you this email, like I'm waiting for a response, and it's like, just give me a minute.
Well, this is great. What's the future hold for you guys? Are you guys opening, like, I know this is a cliche a question that probably everybody asks you when you own a pizzeria, like, are you going to open more shops? So I don't necessarily want to ask you that, but like if you are thinking about it, you can share stories or whatever you have going on.
We are. So our goal is always to have more than one, and it looks like we're heading in that direction. We are in talks to, surprise, surprise, this is the first time what we're saying it, is to maybe put one in Knoxville.
That's great.
It isn't 100% finalized, but it looks like it will be. They actually have a minor league stadium that they're building there, and if we did it, we would be a part of that whole complex. So
that's great. How far is Knoxville from Nashville?
It's about 3 hours, so it's not bad.
Okay.
It's something that we could still drive to and from, and we would definitely be there a lot in the beginning. Because this one, like I said, it's been here 10 years, so we can kind of rely on people that have already been here for a long time. I trust them that everything's going to be okay if we're not here. So it looks like that's going to be happening, and that's really exciting. So
that's great.
That'll be sometime next year.
That's fantastic. That's excellent too. 2 locations is great. It's always good to have like multiple, so you're not having all your eggs in one basket in one location. If that's your goal,
Right.
Some people just want one busy store, as busy as they can
Yes.
possibly make it, and that's all they want. Totally fine.
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool. And from what it sounds like, I mean, they're building that stadium, and that team is going to filter into the Cubs. And with us being a Chicago place, it just seems like a really good fit. And pizza and baseball seem to go well together too. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be good.
This is great. I appreciate you taking the time, Kimberly. Where can people go say hello to you on social media or your website or in
Yes.
person?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook and Instagram. So our Instagram is 312 Pizza Co. and Facebook it's 312 Pizza Company. We have a lot of appetizing pictures on Instagram, so that's a great place to go. And then our website is 312pizzaco.com.
We'll link all that up in the show notes too. Kimberly,
Great.
thank you so much for hanging out with me here on the podcast. It was really great to talk to you and hear about your business. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
One of the things I like to do when I do these podcasts is come away with something, and I want you to come away with something as well. And the one thing, maybe 2, that I came away with this podcast is working with family. Really hard to do. Very important too. There's a lot of businesses out there that are family-run businesses that we talk to on the podcast, but you really have to set up the parameters for working with family so that it doesn't interrupt the family lifestyle. And what do I mean by that is when you work with family, it's easy to bring business home. And it's easy to bring home into the business. You have to really set aside time to discuss that before you get started. Because in the beginning of a business, there's not going to be any confusion. There's not going to be any bickering. There's not going to be any fighting. You're going to be super excited. But as soon as shit hits the fan and it starts to get stressful in the business, that's when you can start to bring business home. And you do not want to do that. You do not ever want your business to interrupt your family life because your family is there forever. And your business is a business. And yes, it makes you money, it creates revenue for you, it supports your family, but you never want your business to come in the way of your family. So make sure that if you do work with family, you make sure that you have it set up where you know exactly what everybody in that family is going to do, and you cut it off when you go home. Don't talk about business at home. And if you have to, maybe set aside time somewhere where you can go, and that's the place where we talk about business. It's a mistake I made, and it's obviously a mistake that Kimberly has made or something that she's alerted about that I think you can take away from this video. So thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Thanks to Kimberly, and we'll see you right back here next week, everybody.